We'll start the section as soon as possible. Okay, so I can see the recording has started. Okay. So good everyone. Good day, good morning, good evening, wherever you're in the world. Welcome to another section brought to you by your BizEdge. And first, I will say Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to 2023. And I pray this year shall be great for everyone. So for our section, we'll be making your Azure pipeline production ready. So this section is brought to you by myself, Temidayo Omoniyi. So I'll talk about the company I work for, your BizEdge. So your BizEdge is a registered Microsoft Excel consulting, financial modeling, business intelligence, data analysis, and enterprise solution firm in Nigeria. We also specialize in helping companies and high-value professionals be on top of their business data. We're also the developer of some Microsoft tools, such as the Nigerian Finance Market Analysis tool, which you can find on the Microsoft Office store. We're also the developer of the Nigerian Stock Analysis Dashboard. I'm also the developer of also so many financial tools, which you can also find on Excel, PowerBI, and so many more. As you all know, we're also a training company in Lagos, Nigeria. We also have branches in Port Harcourt and also in Abuja. So this is our calendar for our upcoming training. So on the 13th of January, which is on a Friday, we'll be having in-depth Excel training, executive dashboard, and business intelligence analysis. On that same 13th of January, we'll be having big data analysis, Power Query, Power Pivot, and VBA using Excel. And on the 17th of January, which is going to be on a Tuesday, we're having Python for data analysis. Okay, so let me just give a brief description about myself, Temidayo. I'm a Microsoft Certified Data Analyst Associate who specializes in data analysis, business intelligence, and data science with over 3 years of combined experience. I'm a Microsoft Certified Trainer who is passionate about sharing knowledge, helping and mentoring young data analysts. I've also developed custom solutions using Microsoft Office. I enjoy creating educative content on your business YouTube channel and other platforms. You can find me on Microsoft Forum, Medium, and other social media network. I enjoy writing code and automating different processes using Microsoft Power Automate. So that's a link to my LinkedIn, which is Temidayo Omoniyi, and also on Twitter. More on Twitter, you can search me on KidoJazz, and also on GitHub with KidoJazz. So let me stop sharing my screen. I'll go right to the business of today. I can see some messages. Oh yeah, thank you. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. 2023 looks so amazing. So amazing. So I'll share my screen. So you can just put in the chat box if you can see my screen. So I'll just start. I know I'm actually sharing my screen. I guess everyone can see my screen, right? Just say yes on the chat box. Okay, so I'll go on. Okay, so for today's session, we're talking about making your Azure pipeline production ready, right? We all know Microsoft Azure is a cloud-based service owned by Microsoft. So this is just the project architecture we plan doing today. And these are the different steps we plan following today. So what I plan doing, we're going to talk about two kinds of dependency in Azure, which is the pipeline dependency and also the trigger dependency, right? So this is just the whole project architecture. So what I plan doing is I plan creating 3 storage system, which is the Azure Blob Storage, the Azure Data Lake Gen 2, and also the Azure SQL Storage. So actually, I've created those 3 already. So we're going to be using these 3 storage system. So how the system is going to work out is, first of all, I'm going to upload a data into my Azure Blob Storage, right? So this, me uploading my data into Azure Blob Storage is going to be my trigger, right? So this, by uploading my data into Azure Blob Storage, automatically starts my entire pipeline. So that's what I want to do. I want it to be like automated. I don't want to stress myself. I want the entire data migration, data transformation, and data visualization should be done automatically without me even stressing myself, right? So we're going to build that together from start to finish. So the first step is me doing what? Uploading data for my local machine or any storage to my Azure Blob Storage, and the entire process starts automatically. So this is how it's going to work, right? So the first thing is the human, which is we are the one, right? The input. We're going to upload data manually into the Azure Blob Storage. As soon as we upload the data, a copy activity is being done in the Azure Data Factory. So Azure Data Factory is a Microsoft services used for migrating, copying, and also performing the whole complete ETL process in the Azure cloud system. So it's going to move, the data is going to move from Azure Block Storage to my Azure Data Lake using the Azure Data Factory. So this process is done inside of my Azure Data Factory. As soon as the data gets into Azure Data Factory, automatically also my Azure Databricks is also triggered. What the Azure Databricks is now going to do for me is going to do two things, right? It's going to perform data transformation, also known as data cleaning. It's going to clean the entire data. As soon as it's done cleaning the entire data, it's also going to migrate the data also back into Azure Azure SQL. So for my Azure SQL now, that which is the final storage, I'm going to connect my Power BI. That's my Microsoft Power BI desktop. But some of you that don't know Microsoft Power BI, it's actually a visualization tool owned by Microsoft, right? It's a data visualization, data analysis tool. So for my Microsoft Power BI, I'll connect my Microsoft Power BI to my Azure SQL on cloud. So I won't pull out the data, that's already clean data, into my into my Power BI using direct query, because there are two ways of getting data into Power BI, either by import or by direct query. So I'm going to be using a direct query into my Power BI and I'm going to visualize it. I know this sounds a lot, so that's why I don't want to do a PowerPoint presentation, because I know I have a lot to do today. So I will start right about now. So I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll go into I can see some messages. Okay, cool. So let me just off my camera so you guys can see me better. So I'll off my camera, okay. So let's start. So I'll go into my browser. I'll open on my browser. Okay. So I have my Azure portal over here. So this is my Azure portal. Remember, I said we're going to be using three storage, which is the Azure Blob Storage, the Azure Data Lake Gen 2, and also the Azure SQL. So what I mean by that is, this is my Azure, what's the name now? This is my Azure Blob Storage over here. So I'll go to my browse storage, I'll go to my blob container. So this is the container I'll be using here, which is raw container web. You can see that nothing is inside. The data is actually blank, so nothing is there. I've not put any data, so you're going to start from scratch now. First of all, I have to go to my Azure Azure Data Factory. Sorry. So I'll go to my Home tab. There's actually a lot of Azure. For my Home tab, I'll go to you can search here for the resource. Just type Data Factory. Right, you can see Data Factory. If I click on Data Factory, it opens the Azure Data Factory for me, right? So the Data Factory performs the complete ETL process, right? That's extract, transform, and load. I can get data from the cloud, also from on-premises, and also from other different sources, right? Like HTTP and also on cloud and so many sources. And I can also perform data transformation using the data flow, or I can also use things like HD Insights, right? Or I can also run Azure Databricks or Spark in Azure Data Factory. But for me now, right, I've already created an Azure Data Factory because I don't want to waste time creating all those resources. So I've already created everything now. So I'll be using this one here. So if I click on this, it should open this for me. So this is how the Azure Data Factory interface works like, right? You can open Azure Data Factory also using Git repo by performing things like CI/CD, right? So what I want to do now, remember, I want to move my data from my Azure Blob Storage to where? To Azure Data Lake Gen 2. So what I will do now, I'll go to my author, right? So in my author, I have to create okay, first now let me first create a what do you call it now? A pipeline. So pipeline serves as a connector between my data source and also my activity. So I'll go to my manage first of all, right? I'll go to where's pipeline? I'll say new, not new trigger, sorry. Where's connection? Sorry. Link, yeah. Okay, yeah. So I'll go to my link service, sorry. By link service, I'll click on new. From new, so remember the data source I'm getting first of all is what? Is from Azure blob storage. So I'll say Azure blob storage. Okay, so I have to give it a name. So I'll give it the name as, so most time when you're doing big data, you have something called the sink and the source, right? So source is where you get your data, sink is where you're copying your data to. So I'll say sink link. I have to give it the same naming convention. So I'll give it web, sink link web, right? So I'll scroll down. You can leave the runtime as default, right? You can also leave the authentication to as default. For the Azure subscription, I'm using my MCT subscription. So I'll click on MCT subscription. For the storage name, I'll look for the Azure, my Azure Blob Storage. I actually have Azure Blob Storage. I also have my data lake, but I'm using Azure Blob Storage because that's going to be my input data. I say it's loading. So when it finish loading, you just click on test to test if the connection is all right. It's testing. Okay, cool. You can see connection successful, and I click on what create. All right, so it's created. So I have to create 2 connections. I've created the first connection, right, which is my source link web. You can see, right? You can see it's showing 0. 0 means I have not connected it to any storage, any data set, right? So I'll click on another link service again. This time around, I'll use the Azure Data Lake Gen 2 because I'm moving from what Azure Block Storage to Azure Data Lake Gen 2. I'll click on continue. Okay, so I'll say this one should be sync. I must name it as sync link underscore web, right? Yeah, this links. Okay, sync underscore web. I have to name it as 2. Okay, maybe I've created that already before. Right, I'll change the subscription also to what I'm using. The storage name I'm using this time, I'm using the Data Lake Gen 2. So I'll select Data Lake Gen 2. So it's going to load, and I'm going to test the connection. I'm going to test the connection first of all. Okay, and I click on what? Great. Right? So it's creating, just give it a couple of minutes. Okay, awesome. So I've created my 2 connections, right? So what I have to do now, create my data set. So I'll go to my auto. So auto is where I do all my activity, all my resource activity and the rest. So let's take, for instance, now I want to create a new folder for this. I'll go to new. Let me create a new folder. I'll call the folder name, let's say production web. I'll call it production web. Production web. Right. So I'll just arrange my work well. That's why I created production web. So this is my folder. I'll create a new should I create this production web? Sorry, for my data set rather. Sorry, for my data set first of all. Let me create a new folder in my data set. Sorry, I'll say production web data set. Right. I'll click on create. So this is creating production web data set. Okay. Production web data set. Okay. So I'll create a new data set now. Sorry. New data set. Remember, my first data set is from what? Azure Blob Storage. I'll select Azure Blob Storage. Continue. The type of the file I'm getting is a CSV file. So I'll take delimited text. My CSV stands for comma separated values. I'll click on OK. And I'll say this one should be source data sets web, right? So it's asking me now for the link. The link service, that was the link service I created the other time. So which is what? Source link web, right? Okay, cool. It's asking me now for the path, the file path, right? So what happened now? Let me show you something. I'll go to my Azure portal, right? I'll go to my home tab. I'll go to my blob storage. I'll go to my browse storage. I'll go to my blob container. So for my blob container, the file I want to use should be inside. I've already created a container called raw container web, right? So this is the container I'll be using, raw container web. Okay, so I'll go back to my Azure Data Factory. I'll go to that directory. I will click on the browse directory. Right, so I should go to my raw container. Yeah, so it's going to be inside this folder. I'll click on OK. I'll click on OK also. Right. So I've done for the source data. I'll now do for the sync data also. I'll create another data set. This one now should be Azure Data Lake, right? This one should be Azure Data Lake Gen 2. Connect. It's still going to be a CSV file. Remember, I'm just migrating. I've not done any data transformation yet, right? So say I'll name this one now to my source data set web. Oh, sorry, it should be my sync. Sorry, my sync data set web. I'll take the link series I created. So it should be sync link web 2. Remember, right? So it's asking me that where down to copy the data to now, right? So if I come back to my Azure portal, so this environment is my data blob storage. So let me go to my data lake now. So my data lake is over here. I'll go to my browse storage. I'll go to my blob container. So I want to copy the data inside of clean files here. So I'll copy the data inside this folder over here, right? So what I will do now is I'll come back to my blob storage. Sorry, my Azure Data Factory. I'll go to the file name, which is clean folder, right? I click on OK, right? I click on OK, right? So now you can see I've created three things now. I've created two link service, which is my source link service. I'm also my sync link service. I've also created two data sets, which is my source data set and also my sync data set. So I have to create an activity now, which will copy the data now from my Azure blob storage to my Azure data data lake gen 2. So I'll now go to my author again. I'll now go to my pipeline. I've already created a folder. So I'll just I'll right click, I'll say, okay, create a pipeline, right? So these are the activities. So pipelines are just collections of activities. Activities are basically action performing inside of Azure Data Factory. So they're just basically different things. So I want to also do move and copy. So I'll say copy. So I'll just copy the data. So this will pop out, right? So you can see I have two things here. I have my source and my sync. So let me just give the general name. I'll say copy from blob, that's blob to lake, data lake. That's a lake gen 2, right? Okay, so I'm copying. So just copying this. Let me just change the move data from blob to lake, right? Okay, so I have two options now. I have my source data, I also have my sync data, right? So if I click on my source data over here, it's asking me now what's the source data set. The source data set, I've already created the source data already, which is my sync data set web, right? Okay, and my sync now, I'll select the data set. That's the where I want to copy the data to, which is my my sync data set web. Let me confirm. Oh, this one should be source, not sync. Sorry, should be source. That's source data set web, right? Okay, awesome. If I preview my data, it should be blank because I should not have any data. I've not uploaded any data yet, right? Okay, awesome. And when I'm done with everything, let me just see if let me publish. So how do you save all your changes in ADF? That's Azure Data Factory. You just have to click on publish all. It's telling me publishing. Okay. Okay, so it cannot locate any data. Okay, that's all right. What it means that I've not uploaded any data inside. Okay, let me do that now. Let me go to my blob storage now. So my blob storage, this is my blob storage over here. So I'll go to my browse. I'll go to my blob container. So in this one here, this is my raw data web. Okay, I will upload a folder. Remember, this is just a continuation of the last class we did last year. Right, so after let's go back, go to data sets, go to sales data. So this is the sales if you want to upload, right? Okay, click on upload. Okay, cool. So I'll go back to my Azure Data Factory again. So inside of my Azure Data Factory, I will go to let me go back to my data sets, right? So I'll edit that my source data set again, my source data set. I'll browse for it. So inside my source data set, I should see a folder inside here, a file, yeah. So this file over here, click on OK. Okay, cool. So if I publish this time around, this should work without no issue. Publish. Okay, so it's publishing. Publishing basically means I'm actually saving my data, right? So I'm actually saving my data. So publish all is how you save data, how you save all your activities you've done, your ADF, your Azure Data Factory. So I'll go back to my author. So my author, I'll go back to my pipeline again. So where's my production pipeline? I'm not yet done yet. This is just the beginning. So okay, I've copied it. So basically what I was trying to do was I was trying to move data from my Azure blob storage to Azure Data Lake. So if I just debug it, so debugging means I'm trying to run. So let me just debug. So let me just show what I'm trying to do. So if I click on debug now, right? So it's going to be running. So it's running. Well, I've not gotten to the main. It's just me showing you what I'm trying to achieve, right? So let me check if there's any question from anyone. Okay, no question so far. So this should be running. So I can also check, I can also monitor it in my monitor side. I can go to my, I'm not using trigger, I'm using debug this time around. So it's debugging. So what's the time now? Okay, this shows manual. So it shows successful. So let me go back to my auto. Let me confirm if it's successful. Okay, you can see succeeded, right? So I'll go to my Azure portal. In my Azure portal now, I was trying to move my data from Azure Blob Storage towards Azure Data Lake Gen 2. So I'll go back to my resources of my Azure Data Lake Gen 2. So for my Data Lake Gen 2, I'll go to my storage. So I'll go to Blob Container. So I'll go to my clean data. So I should be seeing a new file here. I should see a new file here. Okay, awesome. You can see the file just copied, right? So you can see the time is just 4:21. The time is 4:22, so you just 1 minute. So let me just, I'll still delete this. So this is not what I'm actually trying to achieve. So I'll delete this first of all, right? So I'll go back to my, let me see if I've deleted it. Okay, I've deleted it. Awesome. So I'll go back to my Azure Data Factory. So what I want to do now to create a validation to this, that okay, the data must be present. So I'll create a validation. I'll put a validation activity, right? So this is just to check if, let's check, okay, let's just check validation web. So I'm using the web convention naming. So I'll go to my settings. So it's asking for the data set. I want to check the data set should be, if the data set is inside of my, that's my blob storage. So I'll go to my, so blob storage is my source, right? So it should be my source. So you are saying, so that's my source. Okay, yeah, this one. So my source data set, right? Cool. So now I want to create a connection now between my validation and my copy activity. So I'll drag it from here down here, right? Okay, that's step one. So step two now is I want to do another thing. The situation is that when I copy the data, right? Okay, look at this now. I'm moving my data from two places, right? From my Azure Blob storage to my Azure Data Lake Gen. So on a situation that when I copy my data, when my data successfully copy from my Azure Blob storage to my Azure Data Lake Gen 2, so the data in my source should delete. I don't need data there anymore. So in terms of people cannot now create a duplicate of it, or they can copy it twice. I don't situation want to start copying twice. So as soon as I copy the data from my Azure, from Azure Blob storage to Azure Data Lake Gen 2, the data should automatically delete. So I'll use what they call the delete activity. So I'll say delete. So my delete activity, I'll just drag it, I'll put it over here, right? So I'll do the settings for my delete. I'll say delete source web. I'm deleting the source data. I'll say, okay, this settings, the source data should be in my source. So that should be my source data web. Okay, awesome. So my login, so it's asking for the link, right? So the link activity is my source link, right? So my source link also, right? So awesome. So I also connect it now. I have to connect it. I'll drag this from here down here, right? So, okay, so this is done, right? So now let's now publish to save all our changes. So publish is how you save your changes, right? So it's publishing. Awesome, awesome. So watch this now, right? So I'll go back to my so this is my blob storage, right? So this is my Azure Data Lake Gen. So this is my Data Lake Gen. So let me go to my blob storage. So let me go to my blob storage. So my browse container, my blob container. So where's my so this is the container I'm using, right? So let me just delete this first of all, right? So I have the situation where, watch this now. So I have the situation where I'll upload the data again. Now let me just upload the data again, which is my sales data. Right? Upload, right? Okay, cool. But you can see we're still doing all of this manually yet. You are still doing it manually. I've not gotten to the production part, right? So I've already uploaded my data. So my data, this is my blob storage. So remember, if you look at this pipeline here, first I want to check if my validation is to check if the data actually exists or not, right? So if the data exists, it goes to the next step, which is my copy activity. So it's copying the data from my blob storage to my data lake Gen 2. So as soon as the data is copied successfully, what happens now is that the data in my blob storage deletes automatically, right? So I'll run this now to see. So I'll click on debug. So debug is how you run. It's going to run three activities for me now. So it's running. So let's just wait. Click on run. So it's running. So let me just go and check my monitor. I'll go to my pipeline. So this should be running. She should show me 3 things running. So data is actually running. Okay. So let's just wait a couple of minutes. Wait, be fast. Let me refresh to see. So it's still running. Okay. So let's just give it a couple of minutes. So it should be done very soon. Okay, she's showing successful, right? So let me go back to my auto. Let me show you something now. You look at now, it's showing me 3. Okay, cool. You are saying it's showing me 3 things now that's been done, right? Step 1 is what it validates the data. Does the data actually exist or not? Step 2, now it copies the data from my blob storage to my data lake gen 2. Step 3 now it does what? It deletes the data from my blob storage. So let me now check my blob. Let me see if the data still exists in my blob storage. So you can see it's my blob storage here, right? Let me click on refresh. What I'm expecting now is that the data should be deleted from my blob storage. So if I click on refresh, you can see data doesn't exist here anymore, which I've deleted it. So I'll go back to my data lake gen 2, right? So if I go to my data lake, sorry, my storage browser, my blob container, and I'll go to my clean data. So it should be here. Okay, you can see my clean data is there. So it worked successfully well. Okay, but that's not what I'm even trying to achieve. So what I'm trying to achieve now is I want everything to be automated. What I mean by automated now is that let me now add a trigger to this, right? So let's say I'll go back to my Azure data factory. Sorry, there's too much of Azure, so I'm always mixing it up. Azure blob storage, blob there. Okay, let's create a trigger for this now, right? I'll create a new trigger. So I'll say I'll create a new trigger, right? So this trigger here should be trigger of blob to gen 2, right? So this one this starts the entire Azure pipeline, right? Okay, from this type, this is a schedule trigger. I want to change to not a schedule, I want to change to what? A storage event trigger. So what a storage event trigger does is that, okay, whenever I upload a data now, are you listening? Whenever I upload a data now to my Azure blob storage, automatically the entire pipeline starts automatically, right? So I select my trigger data lake gen 2. I select my storage event. The subscription, I'll change the subscription to my MCT subscription, right? So the account, the one I have to do a trigger for is my blob container, right? Awesome. So I want to select the container name. So it's loading. Let's give it a little bit of time. It's going to okay. So the container name should be raw web. Okay. So it's asking me now the file. What should be the file name? Let me just go. Let me get the exact file name. So I'll go to my document. Sorry. So from my document, I'll go to my Python script. From Python script, I'll go to PySpark. I think I've done on PySpark. Okay, data set. I also want to get the exact data name. So let me rename this first of all. So copy the name, right? So I'll go back to my blob story. I'll paste this here. So the blob parts must begin with. So this is the file name I want to get. So the events now I have to event, right? Is it that when a blob is created or when a blob is deleted? So I'll say when a blob is created, right? Awesome. I can see what I say. What start trigger on creation. I click on OK. So I have to. It's telling me that for this to work, I have to publish. Let me just click on continue and continue. So what I have to do now is I have to first publish this, right? So I'll publish the trigger. Where it works. It's publishing. Okay. Let's has it published. I can see that someone has written a question. I'll attempt everyone's question. Okay. So it's publishing. So why does publish? Let me just check my blob storage, right? You can see that I have not. Okay, this is my data lake, right? So I go to my blob storage. We're not done yet, so I still have a lot to show you guys. So in my blob storage, where's my okay? This one here. So my blob storage, I'll go to my browse storage, I'll go to my blob container. So for my blob container, I'll go to my blob container. You can see this is blank, right? Let me confirm if this has published already. Okay, awesome, that's published already. So now remember I've created a trigger. So the trigger is used to start an action. For some of you that are used to things like Power Automate, triggers are what starts an action. The same way too with this, right? Trigger is what's going to start the action. So that's what starts my trigger is when a data has been uploaded to my blob storage. So I'll go to my blob storage. You can see no data is here, right? Awesome. So I'll upload a new data. I'll say upload, browse, sales data. Okay, right? So remember what I want to do now is as I upload this my data, the trigger starts, right? It starts when the trigger starts, that means the data pipeline will start, right? So the data is going to move from what my blob storage to my data lake gen 2. And at the same time, when it goes successfully, the data in my blob storage to what automatically what deletes itself. So I click on OK. So as soon as I click on OK, upload rather. As soon as I click on upload, the entire activity starts instantly, right? So let me just refresh this. Very soon you see that this one will no longer be there. So just wait. Let me go to my blob storage. Let me go to my Azure Data Factory. Sorry. Let me check my monitor. Let me check this time around, it's going to be a trigger, right? Okay, so you can see it's still running. So let's just give it a couple of minutes. But this is what I'm trying to achieve. I still have a long way to go. I think I still have like 30 more minutes. So I still have a long to show you guys. Okay, let's refresh. Let me see. Should have been done by now. Okay, yeah, successful, right? Okay, awesome, successful. Let me go to my author. Let me check it, right? So if I refresh this now, you can see successful. It's almost 3 minutes. Sorry, 3 seconds, 12 seconds, 3 seconds, right? You can see everything, right? So everything worked successfully well, right? So if I check this one to just show details, right? I can see that the data moved from what? My Azure blob storage to my Azure data lake gen 2. Successful, the same data set. Remember, I say CSV file. And also note, I've not done any data transformation yet. I'm just migrating data from Azure blob storage to Azure data lake gen 2. So what I'm expecting, you can see that what the thing I did was just to upload. I didn't click on debug or anything. Everything ran automatically, right? So if I go to my Azure data, my Azure blob storage, you can see this data here. If I click on refresh, I shouldn't see it anymore. So if I refresh this, there's refreshing. Okay, refresh. Why is it wasting time to refresh? Okay, just gives a stock of. I don't know why it's wasting time. Okay, let me see my blob storage, browse storage, blob container. Okay, so if I go to that my raw, it shouldn't be there anymore. No, it's taking time to load. Okay, yeah, you can see no file because all the activity has happened. Okay, but I'm not yet done yet. So if you look at the presentation I showed you earlier today, right? The first step was to move my data from my blob storage to my data lake gen 2. After that, I have to now do my transformation. I want to use Azure Azure data bricks, or you can call it Spark, right? To do my transformation. And when it does the transformation, it now moves the data, the transform and clean data towards my Azure SQL database. From there, I'll now connect it to my Power BI. So now the next step, I have to go to my next now I have to go now to my Azure Databricks, right? So how do you go to Azure Databricks? It's right, it just comes from my Azure portal. I'll go to my home. You can type Databricks, right? I see this data. We just click on this, but I've already opened it already. So let me just come here, right? Okay, so I've already written a note, a Python script, which is written in what I call a PySpark, right? So I go to my work space. So where is the deployment? Okay, I think it should be this one. Yeah, deployment pipeline. Okay, yeah. So this is the entire the entire code I've written. So if you were in the section last week, right, I actually gave a GitHub code to this on how you can go about it. So let me just open my GitHub so you can see what I'm talking about, right? So open a new tab somewhere. Let's say a new tab, right? So I'll say GitHub. For some of you that are following, I'll just copy the GitHub. I'll just give you the GitHub link, right? So I'll say Databricks. What's my Databricks? Okay, so this is it here. So I have, so this is just continuation of what we did this is our last session. Our last session was data transformation using Azure Databricks. So this is a continuation of it. I'll copy this, I'll paste it to the chat. I'll answer everyone's question very soon. Paste it to the chat. Okay. So now this is the code, right? So what I'm trying to achieve now is the data now is where, okay, let me start. I have to start my cluster, right? So I'll start my Azure cluster. I have to start. So actually, I've created a cluster already. So let me just start it. So why did that is running? Let us explain the entire process, right? So I've done two things. I've actually mounted my my Azure data lake, and also I've mounted my Azure SQL database inside of my Databricks, right? So that link I gave you on GitHub, it has all the how to go about, how to mount, how to do everything. But I think I start to upload this particular one. I don't think I've uploaded this particular code to the GitHub right now. Okay, so the process now is the data I got from the data I've copied from blob storage to Azure Data Lake now. So I'll connect my Azure Databricks to my Azure Data Lake. Then I'll do my data transformation. So after my data transformation, I'll now move the data now to my Azure SQL database. So you can see, right? So this is the code I've basically done. I'm reading the data from my Azure Lake. You can see the name of the container is clean file, which is this is clean file. So you can see this is how the file is, right? So what I want to do, I just want to do a simple data transformation, which is what I'm trying to summarize, right? Or do an aggregate of only what pizza sold against amount sold, right? So this is the entire data. This is just Spark, right? This PySpark. So this is just the data transformation. I did some calculation, some code, some transformation, and everything, right? Because I don't want to start doing anything from scratch. And I did aggregates and continue. Just all the codes from start to finish, right? So so what I'm actually expecting, I want the data should be like this in this format. What I mean is, I want to also have only two columns, which is what pizza sold against what targeted amount sold, right? So it should be an aggregate. This is an aggregate, a sum aggregate, right? For some of you that are used to things like SQL, you know what they call aggregates. So the last part, when I put the data into my Azure SQL database, now that's where my data analyst now connects to the Azure SQL database using Power BI. So now this is the last part. What I mean is that the data I was copying, this is how the data I copied is. So I'm going to clean this data, transform it, and I'll make it to be in this format. This is the last format, right? So let's just see, this is still running, right? This is really taking time to run. I'm trying to start my cluster because I can't run it without the cluster. Okay, while that is running, let's just wait. Okay, so that is running, right? Okay, let's just continue. So I'll go to my Azure, this one. Well, I'm shifting like this Microsoft Teams stuff is always at the top, and I don't know how to remove it. So let me go back to my Azure this thing we call it. This is my Azure data factory. So I'll create another activity again. So I'll create another pipeline. But this time around, I'll use so this one will be my Databricks pipeline. Databricks pipeline, right? So I'll look for a note. Okay, so I'm doing a Databricks note, right? So I'm just like a Python note, right? So now this one now, the name of this one should be from lake to Azure SQL, right? So the Azure the settings, okay, I have to first create a link here. So I have to create a link. As for this, I'll create a new link. So I'll click on new link. That's the link service. So I'll say that should be Azure Databricks link web. I want to have like the same naming convention of everything. So you can see the description. I can put any description. You can also explain your description. I'll leave the runtime as the default. I'll change the subscription to my MCT, right? It's asking for the workspace. So I'll look for the workspace, which is I've already created an Azure Databricks workspace, which is your business workspace. Okay, yeah, it has gotten. So it's asking now for the. Okay, cool. So I'm using the authentication. I'm using an access code authenticator. How do you get your access code, right? If you want to get your access code, I'll show it. Okay, let me just drag it. Okay, so if I go to this part, if I go to my, okay, this one has started. Okay, cool. If I go to my username, if I go to user settings, right? If I want to create a new access code, you can see it's go to generate access code. You can create. But have I created one already? So I think I've copied this somewhere. It should be, should I copy it? I didn't copy it. Imagine. Can you just delete this one? Okay, I'll revoke this one. I'll create a new access code. Okay. Let me just say testing web. So you can give it a lifespan, I'll say of 90 days. I'll click on generate. You can see the code here, right? I have to copy it because if you don't copy it, as soon as you close, as soon as you close it, you won't see it because I've copied it, right? I've just opened my notepad, so it will be in my notepad. So no. So I'll just paste it on my notepad, right? I click on done. So that one is done. I'll go back to my Azure Data Factory. I'll paste the access code I just copied inside there, right? So I have to put the cluster version now. So I'm looking for, I'll use 11.3. I'll look for something that's like recent. So I'll use 11.3 Apache Spark. Yeah, I think this one is enough for me, right? So the number of node, I'll use a standard node. So let me use the standard DS32 version. So okay, I can use that one, right? So it's asking for the Python version. I'm using Python 3, not Python 2. So I'll say Python 3. Okay, so it's asking for amount of workers, just only one, only me, because I'm the only one that's working on this. And I can also test, let me test connection to see if it's working well. I think I'm having some notification on Discord. Let me just close this. Okay, successful. I'll click on what create. Okay. Okay, let that create. Okay, awesome. So that's created. So let me just check the settings. Okay, so it's asking now for the path. Right, so the path I'm getting my data from is, so that's the notebook part, right? So it should be deployment pipeline, Databricks here. So this one here, click on OK, right? Okay, awesome. So after this one is done, let me just publish to save. Let's see. Up no issues. Up no issues. Okay. I take it probably. Okay, awesome. Okay, now so let me now create one more activity. So this one will be the last pipeline I'll create. This one will be the, so I'll name this one as the main. This one will be like production. I'll call this one production pipeline underscore web, right? And I will take my execution pipeline. So I'll say execution pipeline, right? So I want to use two execution pipeline, right? So what I'm going to do now is that this Databricks pipeline, I'll make it to be execution 1. This move to, sorry, Databricks pipeline should be execution 2, right? Move data from blob to lake should be execution 1. So I'll click on this, right? So I'll say execution 1. How is that execution 1? The settings, what am I invoking as the pipeline should be move blob. So let's say move. Where's the move? That's move from blob to lake, right? Okay, awesome, no issues. And this other one should be, oh sorry, let's go to the settings. So the other one should be Databricks pipeline. Databricks pipeline. Okay, so I have the two pipeline, right? So I'll just drag this one from here. Okay, awesome. So what I have to do, let me now check the, now that look at what now. It's in 3 stages. I'm using 3 storage system, right? The first storage is my blob storage. Second storage is my Azure Data Lake Gen 2. Third storage is my Azure SQL database. So now the way I have to do it is, as soon as I upload a data to my Azure blob storage, everything should happen. That means it should be moving from my blob storage. The data, when it copies to my data lake Gen 2, the data in my blob storage should delete, and also it should not automatically trigger also the Azure Databricks activity and move the data lastly to my Azure SQL database. So let me go to my Azure portal. So from my Azure portal, I'll go to my, where's my SQL? Okay, my Azure SQL. Okay, so no, sorry, go back home. Okay, sorry, yeah, this is it. I'll put something else. Okay, so let me just show you the query. So let me just log in. Okay, awesome. So what I want to do now is I want to move the data from, so if I type So the name of his data is, I'm going to say select all from sales data clean. So if I run this, just run this first of all. So you can see the data is empty, right? So I have two columns. Remember something, right? Oh, sorry. If you look at this, okay. If you look at this one here, right? Remember that this was how the data was. When I did all my transformation, I converted it to be in this format. Where's this format? To be in this format, which is what? Two columns, pizza sold and what? Amount sold. So I've already created a Azure table, which is what? Two columns, pizza sold and amount sold. How do you create Azure table? You just say create table. You say you give the name of the table. Let's say sales something, open bracket, column bracket, right? You come here, you put your first column, which is also say pizza sold, right? You put the data type, which is the var chart. And you say, okay, let's say 30 characters, comma. And the other one you can be amount, also amount. You can leave it as an integer or as a text, as a decimal. Let's leave it as integer, and that's all. That's how you just create a table, right? So I just created two columns. I'm not doing something too complex, right? So you can see nothing is inside the table. So let me go back to my blob storage, right? So I want to off. So there's a trigger I created out that time. Where's that? I want to edit that trigger. So where's that trigger I just created? This one here, right? So I want to stop. I have to stop this trigger. So I'll say stop. I want to stop this trigger. Yeah, stop it. Okay. So to stop it, I have to publish it first of all. Yeah. So after stopping, I can also detach the trigger if I want to detach it. Yeah, you can see this. I can also detach this trigger. Detach this trigger. Okay, cool. So this is publishing. Let us wait. Okay, awesome. So I'll create another trigger now for this particular pipeline, right? Okay, this one load. So let's give it a couple of minutes. Okay, awesome. So I'll create a new trigger. I'll say new trigger. So I'll create a new trigger. I'm not really sure about this one also. Let me stop this one also. I'm okay. This one is also stopped. Okay, cool. Okay, I want to just stop anything that's okay. Let me detach this one. I'm not really sure. I don't gonna start doing a trigger that will affect the entire thing I want to do. Okay, publish. Just give me a couple of minutes. Okay, cool. So let me now create a new trigger. So I'll say new trigger. It's publishing. Just give it a couple of minutes, a couple of seconds rather. Okay, awesome. So I can change this here now to new trigger. So I'll say this trigger should be like trigger production web final, right? So it's shown as a schedule. I will say how to be a storage event trigger, right? And my subscription type should be my MCT subscription. My what am I triggering? I'm triggering based on my blob storage. Okay, so this data lake, sorry, my blob storage. My trigger container should be my raw container web. So the text should begin with, let me just get the exact spelling. I want to make rename. Copy. Sorry, give me a second to stop this thing. So I think my Discord is making noise. Let me just quit this. Okay, cool. So paste. I want to just start with this, right? So whenever an event starts, right? So I want to confirm something first of all. Okay, nothing is here, right? I'll go to my home also. Just leave this place here. I'll go to my my blob container. I shouldn't have anything like so my storage, my blob container. I'll go to my raw. So I shouldn't have anything here also. Okay, blank. Then go to my data lake. So if I go to my data lake gen 2, I should also not have anything in my storage. So my storage browser, blob container, in my clean data, I should also not have anything here. Should also be okay. Let me just delete this. I shouldn't have anything here, so I'm going to delete this also. Right, cool. So I'll go back to my Azure, right? So it's going to start automatically, and let's click on continue. Continue. So I have to publish the trigger. I have to publish before the trigger can get activated, right? Okay, cool. So it's publishing. Let's give it a couple of seconds. Right, that is publishing. Okay. So as that is publishing, okay. So now, how am I going to start my activity? So I'm going to do you. So I'm going. You have to start activity now. Okay, still publishing. Let's just finish. Okay, cool. So I'll go to my Azure portal. I'll go to my. This is my data lake. Sorry. I'll go to my blob container. My blob container. Right. I'll go to my browse storage. I'll go to my blob container. I'll go to my raw data web, right? So let me open my PowerPoint. So I'll show what I'm trying to achieve again, my PowerPoint. So how it's going to happen now is, first of all, upload my data, right, manually to my blob container, and the entire trigger starts, the entire pipeline starts, right? So as soon as I upload my data to my blob container, the trigger has been activated. So now when the data goes to my blob container, automatically now the copy activity is being triggered, right, with Azure Data Factory. So it copies the data from my blob storage to my data lake. So data lake is just used for dumping data. You can get both structured and unstructured data inside of your data lake, and also your blob storage also. So I think data lake is just a combination of Azure Data Lake Gen 1 and also blob storage. So it copies my data from my blob storage to my data lake Gen 2. As soon as the data gets to my data lake Gen 2, my Azure Databricks gets activated, right? So it does all the data transformation. It gives me the aggregate, right? Which is the product and the amount sold. It now takes the product and amount sold. It now takes the data directly straight to my Azure SQL database. So this is going to be my final point. It's going to be my final point. And mind you, when I get to this point, as soon as this data copy, remember the blob storage data we delete. So when it gets to my data, my Azure SQL database, I will now connect my Power BI to my Azure SQL database. So let's start. So what will I do? First, I have to do, also do what? Upload the data. So I go to browse. I go to what? Upload this data. Open. Click on what? Upload. Okay, cool. So that's all. And let's just wait and let's see. So I'll go back to my Azure Data Factory. I'll go to my monitor. Let me go to trigger. So the activity should have started by now. So let's see. So let's wait. So everything is starting. So let's just wait. So refresh it to see. Okay. As that one is going on, let me now open my Power BI. Open my Power BI. Power BI. My Microsoft Power BI. So for some of you, I've asked, okay, how do you mount your data to? How can you mount SQL to Azure data? How can you mount your Azure SQL data to Azure Databricks? So I have a blog post on Medium. So let me just open my Medium, right? So I wrote an article around it. Cover this during the holiday though. So story published. So this article is going to show you how to mount both Azure Data Lake, Azure Blob Storage, and also Azure SQL to Azure Databricks. Let me just copy the link and I'll put it to the chat box. So for anyone that might be interested, right? Okay, cool. So as that is going on, so this should be finished by now. Refresh. Okay, so some are still going by. Okay, so one has succeeded. Okay, still loading. Let us wait a couple of minutes. So let me just check this one should have been deleted by now. So if I refresh this one should have gone away. Yeah, this one is no longer there. So let us wait. It's still running actually. Okay, it's still running. So for this one, it's going to do a in-job trigger, right? So I'm going to go to my trigger. Let me go to my. So this is what I'm running, right? Sorry. This one here. So it just gives a couple of minutes. So let me check. Let me check my monitor again. Okay, this one should have been done by now. It's taking time. Pipeline. It's still taking time. Okay, this one has completed. It's now the second one, which is moving from the what they call it now, from the Azure database. It's taking from my Azure block storage to my Azure SQL database. So this one should have been done. Let me refresh again. It should be done very soon. Let's just give it a couple of minutes. Trigger run. So I check my trigger run again. Okay. So insurance succeeded. Okay, I think it has successful. I think it has run successfully. Let's check first. I'll go to my Azure SQL. So my Azure SQL database. I'll go to my edit query. So I'll write the password here also. Password. Right. So you can see my table here, right? So select all from sales data. I think sales data clean. So if I run this, I click on run. Okay. Okay, the data is not in then. This is taking time. Mission succeeded. So pipeline. Okay, it's still running. It's really wasting time. Data breaks. I'm sorry, what's happening. Data breaks. Just give it a couple. It's going to run. But actually, what I'm trying to achieve now is that I'm expecting the data to go now to my Azure. If you come here, let me run this again first. Let's see. Okay, yeah, cool. So you can see now the data has entered here, right? You can see now I've already moved. So you can see all what I did now. I moved my data from where? As soon as I uploaded this here, it went using Azure Data Factory. It went to my Azure Blob Storage, and now is my Azure Databricks. It now did my transformation and my migration to my Azure SQL data, my Azure SQL. So now I will now connect my Power BI now to my Azure SQL. So I'll go to Power BI, right? So I'll go to get data. I'll say more. Okay, just give it a couple of minutes. I'll just type Azure. Azure. So I'll look for Azure SQL. Because Azure SQL database, I'll click on connect to Azure SQL database. It's asking for me for the server name, right? I'll go to my Azure. I'll come here. Let's skip this here. You can see this is my server. Okay, yeah, this is my server name here, right? I'll copy this my server name. I'll come here. I'll paste this. That's database actually optional, but I can actually bring it up. So if I say where's my database? So, okay, I think my database should be this here. This is my database here, right? So I'll paste it, but it's optional. So I can do a direct import. I can do an import. I can do a direct query. So I'll do direct query. This one just connects directly to Azure SQL database. I'll click on OK. Right. So I'm coming, and voila. So you can see, right? So this is the data now. So the name of data is what? Sales data clean. You can see it here, right? Click on data transformation. It didn't ask me to log in because I've actually done it before. So that's why I think it still has my previous credentials and everything. So I click on what? Close and apply. So from close and apply, it's loading. Just give it a couple of minutes. Okay, so let's just show you this is the final output now. So if let's say I want to a column chart, something simple. Just a column chart. That's something very simple. I'll take my pizza so to x-axis and my amount so to my y-axis. And that's all. You can see, right? You can see the way we transform the data, moving it from Azure SQL, moving it from what Azure Blob Storage to Azure Data Lake Gen to then to Azure SQL database and right into what Microsoft Power BI. So I hope you guys learned a lot. So that's all. So I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll listen to any questions. So if you have any question, you can put it in the chat box. You can raise your hand. you can actually do more. So for Alabi, right, I said that instead of having to copy, and you can actually do more fun, because this is just a 1 hour section, right? I don't like make the thing so complicated. That's why I didn't do too much. You can actually do far more. You can actually do much more than that. So any question? Because we're actually way behind. We're actually way above time. We've passed our time mark. So any question? If you have any question, please can you raise your hands? I assume everyone got it. Okay, so let me give you a link to our next section. So let me just go to our next section. Just give me a couple of minutes. Okay, our next section. So I'll give you the link to our next section for some of you. So we're having let me share my screen so you can see my screen. Okay, I can see Elijah's hands are up, so I'll make Elijah a speaker. Elijah, just give me a second. So Elijah, I've made you a speaker, so you can mute yourself and speak.
Yeah.
So Elijah,
Yeah. Is it morning? Good day.
anyone
Thank
is
you
fine.
for. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I said anyone is fine.
All right. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for this opportunity to speak and also for sharing this with us. I just have a few questions, and one is can this recording be available to go through later?
Yes, so I'm actually putting it on the chat box now. You can check the chat box.
Okay, and that's one. And two, um, um, this I don't know how to put it, but I've had an issue basically with a database. It's an ODS. It's an operational data store that basically operates on an ODBC data connection, and majorly I've been having this kind of issue migrating the data into an Azure cloud basically. So I just want to ask, this same process, does it align with other kind of database, or is just specific to the one you actually ran us through, or is there a specific way? Because what I've observed is that it seems trying to get data from an ODBC connection into an Azure database, it's kind of maybe it's something that is not allowed or so, because I've tried series of ways. I've to the point that I don't know if we myself and you we discussed this sometimes. I'm not sure if it was you, that I had to use a linked server, excuse me, to bring that data from the ODS into my SQL server. But my final destination, it's actually an Azure, server, but I've not really gotten it specifically. So I just want to be sure if if you have an idea of a specific way of doing that, or it's not just something that is not allowed from an ODBC connection. Yeah,
Okay,
that's my question.
thank you, Elijah. So for all the BC, right, it's only ones I've actually worked on it, but that one was more like I used Postgrad. That was back then. So, but I've not tried that before. But I won't lie to, I'll be honest, I've not tried it before. I'll have to do my research on it. But Azure allows multiple data source. You can also get Azure for Postgrad and other ones. So, but for ODBC server, I've not tried it before. I have to like go do my research, and maybe when I'm done, I might make a video or an article around it, if that's okay by you.
All right, fine, thank you.
Okay, no problem. So any other question? Oh, Michael, do you want to say something? I don't know, is Michael staying? Okay. So any other question? Okay, so let me just share my screen. So our next session will be coming up in the next 1 hour, right? So we're having Rachel Irabo. She's also a Microsoft student learn, a gold student Microsoft learn. She'll be taking us on increasing your productivity using Microsoft Power Automate. So this will be done in the next 1 hour. So that's going to be like 6 o'clock UTC +1. So I'll copy the link for some of you that might be interested, and I'll paste it here in the chat box. And for some of you that might be interested, I've pasted the link in the chat box, so you can just join. And also, let me also paste the direct link for everyone, so you can just join. And we see everyone by 6. So thank you, everyone. And do have a lovely weekend. And also, once again, happy new year. So bye, guys.